All right, hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to dust off a book that's nearly 2,400 years old, but I promise you, it feels more relevant than last night's news. We're talking about Aristotle's Politics. And no, it's not a guide on how to win an election. It's something way, way deeper. It's a user's guide to one of the hardest things we humans ever have to do, living together. So to kick things off, we have to ask the one question that's at the absolute heart of this entire work. It's a question I'm sure you've asked yourselves a bunch of times, especially when you look at the world today. I mean, really think about it. What's the point of politics? These days, when we hear that word, our minds usually jump straight to conflict, division, problems. It feels like this messy thing we just have to put up with. But what if I told you that for the guy we're about to meet, politics was the complete opposite? What if it was the noblest, most essential activity for us to become fully human? Okay, let's dive into that. Our guide on this journey is Aristotle, a thinker from ancient Greece who asked this exact same question and came up with an answer that is, even now, pretty revolutionary. So get ready, because we're about to see politics in a whole new light. To really get his ideas, we first have to jump in a time machine and step into his laboratory. And his lab wasn't some room with beakers and test tubes. It was the world all around him, ancient Greece, and specifically, one fascinating invention. And that invention is the polis. Now be careful here. Just translating polis as city doesn't even come close. For Aristotle and the Greeks, the polis wasn't just a bunch of houses and streets. It was a common project, a community of citizens who came together not just to survive, but to actively search for a good life, for happiness, for fulfillment. For him, politics starts right here. And Aristotle saw this whole thing as completely natural. It's not like one day someone just said, hey, let's start a city. No way. For him, it was a logical evolution. You start small with the family unit, the oikos, which takes care of everyday needs. Then, a few families get together to form a village, the kome, to help each other with bigger stuff. And finally, when you get a few villages together, you create the polis, the only community that's truly self-sufficient and has everything you need, not just to live, but to live well. And this natural progression leads us directly to the most famous idea in the entire book. It's a phrase you've probably heard before, but now we're going to understand what it really means. Politikon zoion, literally, political animal. Now what Aristotle is saying here is radical. Living in a political community, in a polis, isn't just an option we choose. It's part of our very essence. It's in our DNA. A human being all alone, outside of the polis, is either a beast or a god, but not fully human. And there it is, the famous quote in all its glory. Think about that for a second. For Aristotle, politics isn't something that happens over there, done by politicians. Politics is the activity that defines us. It's what allows us to reach our full potential as rational, social beings. But, and this is a huge but, being a political animal is not the same thing as being a gregarious animal. You know, like a bee or an ant, they live in groups because of pure instinct, just to survive. We humans are different. The key? We have something unique, logos, the power of reason and language. We don't just make sounds to show pain or pleasure. We use language to debate with each other about what's just and unjust, what's right and wrong. And that conversation, that dialogue, is what politics is truly built on. Okay, so we've accepted it. We're political animals, and we need the polis to flourish. The next question is pretty obvious, right? If we have to live together, what's the best way to organize ourselves? Who should be in charge, and how? Aristotle, being a very practical guy, suggests a super simple but incredibly powerful test. To know if a government is good or bad, you only have to ask one question. Are the rulers governing for the good of the entire community, the common good, or are they just looking out for their own private interests? It's that simple and that profound. And using that one test, Aristotle creates this famous table. Look at it. It's a really clear map. He asks, how many people rule? One, a few, or many? And then, are they doing it for the common good or for themselves? So, if one person rules for the good of all, you get a monarchy. But if that king starts ruling only for himself, it decays into a tyranny. If a few of the best and most virtuous people rule, that's an aristocracy. But if it's just a few of the richest people trying to get richer, it degenerates into an oligarchy. And here's the kicker for us. If the majority rules for the good of the whole community, Aristotle calls it a politeia, or a republic. But If that majority rules only for its own interests, crushing minorities, it becomes what he called democracy. To him, democracy had a negative ring to it, kind of like mob rule, or what we'd call demagoguery today.
So, which one was his favorite? Well, being a realist, Aristotle wasn't chasing some impossible ideal. His preferred option for the real world was the politeia, a smart mix of oligarchy and democracy. And the secret ingredient to make it work? A large, strong middle class. He thought the super rich were arrogant and the super poor were resentful, but the middle class was the most stable. They're the anchor of the city, an idea that, as you can see, is still very much alive.
Aristotle's thinking didn't just get locked away in his school, the Lyceum. His ideas have traveled across centuries, influencing the way we think about power and community right up to this very day. And his influence is just immense. The idea of a mixed constitution and a balance of powers, that inspired the Roman Republic. Centuries later, Thomas Aquinas brought Aristotle back to life for medieval political thought. Jump to the 18th century, and the founding fathers of the United States, as they were debating how to build their new nation, had Aristotle's ideas on republics and the dangers of tyranny fresh in their minds. Even today, when we talk about the separation of powers or the dangers of populism, we are often, without even knowing it, still in a conversation with Aristotle. So, why is this book still a timeless classic? Because beyond his specific answers, what Aristotle really gave us was a method. In a way, he was the very first political scientist. He didn't just sit around with abstract theories. He collected and studied 158 constitutions from his time. He observed, he compared, he analyzed what made some cities thrive and others collapse. He taught us to look at politics like a biologist, analyze reality to find out what actually works. So if we have to walk away with just one big idea from all this, let it be this one. For Aristotle, politics is not the dirty, distant game we sometimes think it is. It's the human activity par excellence. It's the space where we use our reason and our language to decide together what a good life looks like. It is the tool we have to build a community where every one of us can reach our best version. And this leads us to the final question, which isn't for Aristotle anymore. It's for each and every one of us. The next time you're in a debate, or you vote, or you get involved in a local group, or even just talk with a friend about society, remember this. Because according to Aristotle, in that very moment, you are exercising your deepest nature. So the question is, what kind of community are you helping to build? I'll leave you with that. Until next time.